Um, I'm going to share the screen and we're going to go over the vocab words, okay?
Oh, let me open.
So the first one is delegated powers. Can somebody explain what those are?
Anybody want to go, or I'll go?
How about you go, Betty?
Okay, so delegated powers is I see it as assigned powers that the branches of the federal government, as in the executive, legislative, and judicial, get assigned. So basically, it's their roles. They can assign their roles, of what areas or what things to cover in the government.
So what's the difference between delegated powers and expressed powers?
The delegated powers, I would say, are, the assigned, and expressed would be, I don't know, would it be like the roles they actually do, so that the role they actually express?
Neil, you think you have it?
Yeah, isn't like delegated powers, isn't that in the Constitution and expressed isn't in the Constitution?
Actually, it's flipped. So, the president's expressed powers are the ones that are specifically defined in the Constitution, while delegated powers are powers that a branch of the government gives to the executive branch to carry out that action. So they're delegating, basically they're giving a power to an executive branch so they can execute what is necessary. Let's see. So an example from the book is that if Congress determines that air quality should be improved, it might delegate to a bureaucratic agency in the executive branch the power to identify the best means of bringing about such improvement, as well as the power to implement those improvements. So essentially, bills are passed and the legislative gives another branch the power to implement that bill. Does that make sense?
So, okay, so you're saying that in a delegated power, your example was for the delegated power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the are ones that are actually defined in the Constitution, such as the president's power, military power as the commander-in-chief. And then you also have the judicial power that the president has to give pardons and stuff like that. Then you have diplomatic power, where the president has these powers to make treaties with other countries. And so those are all expressed within the Constitution.
What did you say was the judicial power? I missed the last part.
It's okay. They have the power to grant pardons to people that have been tried in court.
Power to grant what?
A pardon.
Pardon.
Yeah. So
Okay.
pardon somebody from a conviction.
Got it.
So the next one is executive privileges. What are those?
It claims that the confidential communications between the president and close advisors should not be revealed without the consent of the president.
Mm-hmm. And so, can you think of an example of that? Might be?
Or so an example would be like a conversation between say General Westmoreland and like LBJ during like the Tet Offensive or something like that. You don't want to reveal top secret information, so it's doing the national security. Or like it could be simpler than that. Or like a modern example, you can like kind of like a Patriot Act. You don't want to talk about that because it's top secret information. Making it further.
So, did everybody hear Trainer? Okay, I'll repeat what he said. He likes to mumble a little bit. Example would be a conversation between a general in the army and the president. That conversation would be under executive privilege and be confidential because it is a matter of national security. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to executive order. Can somebody explain what that is?
An executive order is kind of like like this is prior like an amendment as an amendment of the Constitution or a way of bypass the rest of executive branch for the president to bypass Congress. But the downside to that, or kind of like a balancing act, is that it only lasts for like the terms of the next president because they feel it. So that kind of like balances the power of them. And also it's has its like not vetoed but canceled out by Congress. Majority vote or something like that.
It could be overrated.
Yeah.
So did you,
I'm sorry.
just making sure, did you guys hear Trainer? No? Okay. All right. So I know Camille, you were there when you guys talked about the executive order. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so basically an executive order is basically a rule, like what it says is a rule regulation issued by the president that acts like a piece of legislation. And so it's basically if like something's going on in the country, for example, like, or like in another country, for example, like the war, like World War II, basically the president can set an executive order like the Japanese internment camps to kind of protect the United States for so it's just basically to protect the United States, basically for the common good of the citizens. And it allows the executive order, it allows him to bypass either houses, like I think it's, yeah, it's to allow him to bypass the houses so it's easier to like make a legislation faster.
Yeah, exactly. And the important thing to note is that they can kind of suspend constitutional rights when they make these orders, which can be. So what is the executive cabinet?
Like explained prior, kind of enunciate a little bit better this time, but the executive cabinets are, I think a good example that Betty showed is like kind of like an executive, like a CEO with like a bunch of heads. So an executive, oh, can you guys hear me?
Can you guys hear Trainer?
No.
No.
Okay.
So just get up nice and close to this and
So-
really project.
Yeah. So the executive cabinet is kind of like it's the heads of appointed bureaucracy, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a bureaucracy, but sometimes it is. So an example of that would be similar to like the head of the EPA or something like that, or the head of the FBI. It's kind of like chief chief bureaucrats, and it could be other things as well, like yeah. Just leave that aside.
Did you guys get that? Okay, excellent. So basically when you hear all of those like secretary of this, secretary of that, those are the people that make up the cabinet.
So it's like my example of like the school site count, like a board of a district, like a school district.
Yeah. And each of them specialize in that kind of, are supposed to specialize in those departments.
Yeah.
And so what is the National Security Council?
It's a body created in the U.S. by Congress after World War II to advise the president, which chairs this council, on issues related to national security and domestic, foreign, and military policy.
Yeah. So basically the little council of people that the president consults with before taking military action. Executive Office of the President.
I kind of just took it as staff reporting to the president.
Mm-hmm. So the bureaucrats underneath that kind of help run the cabinet and the executive branch itself, because as you know, there's more than just the president and the executive. So they're basically what run that military power, the legislative power and stuff like that the president has. And then, so what is a plural executive? And this is from Governing California.
So,
Doesn't it consist of the governor and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So like the governor, where's my book? I just know it has to do something with the governor.
Yeah.
And it's like how like the executive branch of California and how the governor uses it to govern the state and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know right now.
Does anybody want to do some further research and help assist Elizabeth with her answer?
The definition I got off Google is a group of officers or major officials or a committee that functions in making current decisions or in giving routine orders.
Mm-hmm. And so that is basically the sharing of power between the executives. So you have two people that can help make decisions. So in California, we have the governor, and then honestly, I'm not too sure where the second source of power is. And that's fine. I am going to look it up. And we'll see it together. Because there's no shame in looking up something that you do not know. California. Let's look at this PDF right here. Because I know there's like a vice governor, but I don't think that that person is. Oh, so I assume it's the lieutenant governor. So it's the governor and the lieutenant governor that share executive power in the California state system. And the reason why, like, you have this plural executive is to give representation to whatchamacallit, all constituencies in California, especially if there is a change of mood in, like, let's say just the demographics and stuff like that. It's like how they have the House of Representative races staggered every 2 years and everything, so that as to be responsive to the current political climate. Does that make sense? Okay. And so also, I think if you guys want to go back and look at this, this would be a very helpful sheet that kind of outlines everything. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but in your Governing California textbook, at the end of each of the chapters, they have like basically an outline that explains the whole, well, it outlines the whole chapter, so you can easily find what you're looking for. And also sometimes they explain things a bit more clearly in the outline, just because they have to be concise. So, quick pro tip. So, let us go back to our unitary executive. Now, what would that be?
I couldn't find it, so I Google searched it, and it's stated that it's a theory of American constitutional law holding that the president possesses the power to control the entire executive branch.
Yeah, so basically, we just have one person at the head of the executive, the president, rather than the California system where the governor and the lieutenant governor are at the head. So that's plural, and the president is unitary because he is one. He's uno. Yeah, no, the vice president is definitely a figurehead. He doesn't really hold actual real power. All right, you guys ready to move on to administrative strategy? Can somebody explain what that is?
I see it as like consultative strategies, kind of.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Like, for example, so I see it at, how do I put this? I'm trying to think. So it provides strategies and solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you consult strategies and solutions. Like, I don't know how else to put it in my own words. Like,
Does anybody want to help, Betty?
In the book, it said that there were 3 strategies, right? And then one was to enhance the reach and power of EOP. The second one was sought to increase White House control over the federal bureaucracy. And the third one was to expand the role of executive orders and other instruments of direct presidential governance.
Yeah. And so these are all different strategies to expand the power of the executive in various ways.
So what was it? White House over bureaucracy was the second one, and what was the last one?
It was to expand the role of executive orders and other instruments of direct presidential governance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bless you. What to call it? And then what is going public?
It's when the president uses the public opinion to persuade the Congress to follow his programs.
So basically using the public mood to get Congress to do what he wants. So he's like, oh, well, public opinion wants this, so just listen to me. All right. So I want to move on to the articles, but because we're probably not going to have time for this, and I want you guys to do this on your own because I think you might be tested on it. Make sure that you know the difference between the power and the role of the governor of California compared to the powers and roles of the president.
Okay. So, okay, that part of the question?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's an important, because sometimes he asks you guys this question. So
Okay.
make sure that you read that up on that. All right. So let's move on to ostrich politics. Did any of you read this article?
Yeah.
All right, Angelina, can you give us a little summary of it?
It was talking about how governors or like any elected officials tend to, like, before they're elected, like while they're running, they make these weird promises, and then like the second that they're elected, they go against their word, and then they go and like do basically what they promised they wouldn't do. And one of those things was like raising taxes. They promised they won't raise taxes, then right when they get into office, like a month later, they raise taxes. And citizens were considered these ostriches because there's an example where like the guy's like at a zoo or something, and the ostrich keeps coming up and trying to nibble on like a metal bar because it thinks it's going to be tasty, yummy, and then it walks away, and 5 minutes later it comes back and nibbles on it again because it's forgetting. And we're kind of those ostriches in the sense that we get like screwed over by the governors, but then we keep re-electing the same exact people and keeping them in office, and we don't really learn our lessons.
And that's kind of the problems with incumbents and everything, because we have this this ostrich politics where we elect these people and then they don't do what they promised to do, and then they're just like, oh, well, I guess we'll vote for him again. Maybe he'll actually get to do it this time. So, yeah, that's essentially that article. Do you guys have any questions about it, or do you feel comfortable with it?
GOPs have a lot of GOPs have the same argument with Obama's first term. They're against the raising of taxes and stuff like that, and raise taxes. So that they went back and forth. As in the current format, so for an example.
And actually, a really current example would be Trump and what he's doing, because if anybody has been looking at his policies and everything that he's saying that he upholds, they've changed since he's been elected as the president-elect. At first he was like, I'm gonna completely take out Obamacare, and now he's like, I'm gonna fix some things. I'm gonna reform it, And so, and then if you look in his other policies, that's also happening. All right. So let's move on to, it pays to know where the bodies are buried. Who read this article?
I skimmed this one.
Camille, you raised your hand? You're muted.
Yeah, I read this one, but I kind of forgot. I had to go over it really fast.
Okay, refresh your memory.
Okay.
I think this was the one that they were talking about, experience and
Yeah.
politics.
Oh, yeah.
All right, do you think you can give us a little summary, Camille?
Yeah, so basically it was saying, in the beginning it started off by saying how, experience, for some things isn't, really necessary, and it's, not really, sometimes a good thing, but, and then it goes on to talk about how government, you actually need experience, because, it explained about, this, I think it was, a 32-year-old or 30-year-old who became a governor or something, and he used the he didn't know what he was doing really, and he just kind of used his powers too much, and then it goes on to Gary Johnson and talked about how he was in government just for the term and he wasn't in government before he became a governor. And so he didn't have any relationships with any of the government appointed officials. So he didn't know anyone, and he was basically doing it all by himself. And so it didn't really help, and he was a very good governor.
Yeah, because he wasn't able to get whatever legislation he promised his constituents because he didn't have the connections in government to do so.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everyone? All right. Let us move on to All right, so the founder's great mistake. Did anybody read this article? Did anybody skim it? Nope. All right. Did any of you guys do any of the articles that are assigned for Tuesday?
Gonna be honest, I didn't.
That's what I want. I want honesty.
I skimmed over a few of them.
Okay. So, would suggest that you guys read them on your own, because none of you have read it, and I want to be able to discuss these articles with you. I want to explain them myself because that's not my job. So I'm gonna assign these 4 articles to you guys that are, assigned to you already to look at. I would highly recommend that you look at, if you're limited on time, to read the 2,988 words that changed the presidency and the founder's great mistake. Now, let me see. So, did any of you have any questions that I can answer in these last 7 minutes? Any problems with the reading in general?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so for plural executive, is that like used only by like our state, or is it like used by other states as well?
There are other states that use plural executivism, and
Okay.
you see it more often in like Europe and stuff like that, where it's more of like a dual executive. But that's nonsense that you guys don't have to worry yourselves about. Just focus on the states and our federal government.
Okay.
But yeah, so
She was like rubbing in her face.
is there anything else? Or are you guys ready? Are you guys ready to end class?
I guess end class. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. If there's no objections, then let's end the meeting. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a very happy Thanksgiving. And also, just a reminder, we don't have class on Wednesday because we decided as a collective that none of us want to do this on Wednesday. Because we'd rather, be family or travel, for Thanksgiving. So I'll see you guys later and have a happy Thanksgiving once again.
You too.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.